We can rejoice that I took the short version of today's readings. In the very first week of Lent, we heard about Adam and the fall that brought darkness into our universe. On the second Sunday, we read about Abraham and his call. On the third Sunday, we heard about Moses, the great lawgiver. And now we hear about David. This is the first time in the Bible that we see David. He was mentioned a little bit earlier, but as a prophecy, not as an actual living person. So we're hearing this wonderful kind of history of our church and our faith. And this is a very critical episode from the book of Samuel, 1 Samuel, because he gave a gift to David that it doesn't seem any other person had this in the Old Testament. After Samuel anoints David, he said, "And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon David." That Spirit of the Lord comes for all of David's life. Now, sometimes we think of that as a New Testament idea, but here is God giving his Spirit to David for all times. And even when David was not living the way he should, he was still possessed that wonderful gift of the Spirit. Now, a lot of other people in the Old Testament were striving to walk with the light, but the darkness has such power. And so here in our second reading today, that this coming of light. In fact, that was the very first command at the beginning of our universe. Let there be light. And not just physical light, but other light as well. You were once in darkness, as St. Paul wrote, but now you are in the light. But now we still have to battle against the darkness. It's still there. It's still lurking around. And we know just from our world that's happening. It's not just, light all the time. There is darkness as well. And we come in contact with some of these things, with murder, theft, unfaithfulness to spouses, envy, judgment, shame, unworthiness. All those things are still there. And they plague us. And it makes it hard to see the light. But here we have Jesus. He spits in his hands, and he picks up dirt and makes a salve there. Now, when you hear that, what other Bible image should you be thinking about? What about Adam? What about Adam is a corollary to this? What did God do for Adam? He built up the body from the dirt of the earth, breathed life-giving spirit into him so that he could be in the light. When we look at the Bible, there's such connections. That's, if you get a chance, do some of our Bible studies to begin to see how these things come together. But God gives him that out of the ground, now a living being and living in the light. And in the gospel today, Jesus gives two beautiful gifts to this man who was born blind from death. First of all, he gives joy, the joy of physical sight. Now he can see his family. He can see the world. And what a joy that must have been for him, that now he can actually see things, recognize people, not just by their voice, but when they see them coming. That was a great gift. But he also gave the gift of spiritual sight, the gift of faith. He enabled the blind man to recognize and see God. So which is more valuable? And the answer we can discern from the gospel and the readings. He stood up to the powerful Pharisees. This is that man who didn't have an education, didn't study the scriptures, was not a rabbi or anything, but here he is standing up to the leaders of their faith community. And what strength that is. And that doesn't come from this kind of blindness, but from spiritual blindness when we get to be in the darkness. They kicked him out. They said, look, you didn't study the scriptures. We're the rabbis. Get out. It's a kind of excommunication. And he's taken out of the goodness and the community of the beloved. But he saw the face of God. We have to remember the value of God's supernatural gifts if we want to protect our friendship with Christ. We have to help that grow more positively all the time. And one of the greatest gifts we have, of course, is the gift of the Eucharist, Christ's true body, blood, soul, and divinity, given to us as spiritual food. And remember, please, this is not just a remembrance of Jesus, but Jesus himself when you receive communion, the same Jesus who died on the cross. And remember last week, we have the horizontal things, all those nice things we have, but also the vertical. When you put them together, what do you get? What do you get? The cross. We need both. But this vertical is really on a higher level, a higher point. The very learned and famous man, Cardinal Newman, he was an Anglican, not a Catholic, tried to write a book about making middle way between Anglicanism and the Catholic Church. Taught at Oxford, was very well paid. I mean, in those days, lived kind of about 100,000, 120,000 in today's dollars. So he had all these things. And as he's leaving the Anglicans to become Catholic, his friends are saying, don't do this. You're going to lose everything. You're going to lose your friends. You're going to lose your salary. You're going to lose your way of living. Don't do this. And he was getting about 4,000 pounds at that time as a salary. And he said, what are 4,000 when compared with one Holy Communion? He saw the light. He went much deeper than the surface. So let's see if we can apply some of these principles to our own lives. I really would hope you would take some time this week and read that whole gospel chapel from area from John, and how the tit and tat that goes back between the blind man and now he can see, and with the Pharisees. Even his own parents were kind of worried about it. And when the Pharisees asked his mother, she said, well, ask him, I don't know. But he did, and he had that great strength. And this week, as we go through these sins of that are part of our lives sometimes, such as greed, hopelessness, disappointment, worry, regret, we kind of see those in some of the readings during the week. We have to find a way to battle them. And that means we have to truly, truly allow the light of Christ to come in. We can't be arrogant. One of the things that really gets us off course in the spiritual life, thinking we know all we need to know. Well, I know all I need to know about the church. Only one who does that is God the Father. All of us are ignorant of parts of the church. All of us. Well, I went to Catholic school. I went to Catholic college. I go to a Catholic church. Okay, that's not enough. We got to keep growing in our faith. Striving with spiritual light to see the beauties and the truth of faith. You will never, ever know enough on this earth. So don't get snooty, all right? We can do better than that, to have that humbleness. And spiritual sight always brings a sense of humility. Eyes of the heart. And when we see with the eyes of the heart, we will rejoice. And as we celebrate this Laetare Sunday, remember, it is a command. It's in the imperative tense. Rejoice. Yes, thank you. See, he knows. But it's a command. Rejoice. Not if you want to. It's a command. Even with all the stuff that goes around us, all this evil and darkness around us, we always should rejoice because we have the light of faith. We can walk with a countenance of joy and tranquility. That really is possible. And just imagine if we all took on this mission to walk every day this week with a countenance of joy and tranquility. You will help change lives, just like this blind man was changed. Because when you walk with a countenance of joy and tranquility, you will walk with the face of Christ. And others will see that. And they will be so beautiful that others will follow you into the fullness of faith. John Henry Newman, a brilliant man, saw that. And ended near the closing of his life. He saw that all these other accolades did not match one communion. Every week, every day, we bring that communion to those who come to Mass or at home when they can't get out. That's what we need. That's what this world needs. So this week, walk with the countenance of joy and tranquility. And most of all, rejoice.